Hello friends, welcome to JavaScript tutorial. So here in this video we will look at the jQuery function animate. So the animate method is useful to perform parallel or sequential animations. Now let's proceed with this example. With the animate method, we can create custom animation. Previously, we looked at the standard functions like show, hide to control the display of the element, and thereby doing the animation by specifying the time duration. Next, we looked at fade in and fade out to perform the transition in terms of transparency as well as opacity. Next, we looked into the slide up and slide down animation functions that makes use of the CSS height property. Now we can use the animate method so that we can control any CSS property to create our own custom animation. Maybe you can write your own function, and that function uses the animate method and that ties to some existing CSS property. Say for example, you can create a gradient animation, but inside you can adjust the CSS color property and perform transition, right? So just giving an example for animate method, and with animate method we can create a custom animation. The animate method has two overloads, and in this sub-series we will concentrate on overload that takes two parameters. But as a theory, if you want to know what the second overload is doing, the second overload takes four arguments. The first one is the object that represents the CSS property name, say for example height, width, border color, right? Those are all the CSS property that you can pass it as a first parameter along with its value. So duration tells slow, fast, or number in milliseconds. So that's the second parameter we can use. Third and fourth parameter that we are not considering in this course is easing and callback function. This will be useful if you want to perform a full-fledged, complete custom animation function like the gradient color. Alright, in this specific video or in this example, we will use the first overload with the first two parameter. So here we just talked about the second overload. With the first overload, we can just specify the CSS property along with its value. Then we can tell the duration or transition time, right? Using these two, we can create our own animations. Easing and callback function we will learn later, and if time permits, towards the end of the course we will look into easing and callback functions. Now let's explore the example. We know that we already have a button in between the paragraph. The button ID is expand and it reads expand. And we already have the handler function, and we used that in our previous couple of examples. Now we take second para using this jQuery selector. Then we make a call to animate method on the second paragraph. First parameter, if you see, we are passing the CSS style. Here we are talking about the first parameter. This is the CSS property name and its value. So the CSS property name is height, and value here we are giving toggle. instead of giving a fixed value, we state toggle. That means this will perform the toggle. The height will go from 0 to maximum height, then from maximum height to 0, right? Almost equivalent to slide up, slide down. So the first parameter, we specified the CSS property along with the value within the curly braces. Then duration, we are giving the slope. After that, this is the existing code to perform the button text. So animate can also take multiple CSS property in the first parameter that we will see later. For now, we will go ahead with this and perform a demo and come back to this slide again. So already created an example, right? 0.16, copied it from 0.15 so that we can make our code change. Here we are doing the slide down effect, right? We will cut down that. We just want to change the button text only. We will cut down this as well. Or we can completely remove this is hidden and we can make use of the button text itself. First, let us test this. This time we are using the button text, right? This is the click event handler for the expand button, and $this dot text. Dot text will give us the content of the button. That means this is the content, right? HTML tag, and text will give this expand. So using the text, we read the content, then we change the text to collapse, right? Next time when it runs, this condition will become false and we put expand. Let's see whether that the toggling stuff is happening. Paragraph is hidden during the document reading. That's okay. Now we will run it. Lamps expand. So this is working, right? Now let's go back to the code. And here we will place the animate method. Alright, we are selecting the second para, and this time we are using the animate method. And the first parameter is height toggle, second parameter is slope. Let me put Ctrl S to save the content, reload it, and do the expand. Right, see, since this is the toggle, now when I click collapse, it will collapse. Right, animation, we kept it as slow. So the animate can also take multiple CSS property in the first parameter. So here we are talking about the first parameter, right? So if you look at the first parameter here, it is taking a single parameter, right? Or single CSS property, height, within these curly braces, right? We can pass multiple such property here. Animate can also take multiple CSS properties in the first parameter. Below we take the parallel transition of two entities, height and opacity. Height here already we are performing. Opacity, if you see, we added it, right? And this is the curly braces, and here is the animate method. This line we are changing, right? At present it is taking one parameter or one CSS property in the first parameter. Now we changed it to take two property. One is the height transition, and the second one is the opacity, right? This is height property, this is opacity. Both we are giving it as toggle. This time instead of slow, we give a specific timeout or the duration millisecond. This is 3000 millisecond, and the transition takes place in 3000 milliseconds or 3 seconds. Alright, now let's go ahead and do this animation, right? And if you see below, we take the parallel transition of two entities, height and opacity. We are talking about parallel transition. Why? Because the duration for this animation is 3 seconds, and both the transition takes place in 2 seconds. That means here we are performing multiple effect that takes place in 3 seconds of time. The multiple effect is because of two property transition taking place here. One is the height transition and another one is opacity. So here when we animate it, the second paragraph will slowly reveal by changing the height, that is transition 1, and in the same time the second transition of transparency takes place. So the element will take the transition of transparent to fully opaque, or we can say opacity 0 to fully visible 1. Now let's go to the demo and make this change and see how the parallel transition is working. So here is the code, right, for second para animate. Let us cut down this and place our new code that takes two CSS or two animation effect, height as well as opacity. Let's save this content and see how this animate is working. Now when I click reload it, when I click expand, you can see two transition taking place parallelly, and the transition takes place in 3 seconds. Right? We already have text font increase or decrease button, which performs text size increase or decrease by changing the CSS property. So that's how we started the example, right? So using the plus and minus button, we can increase the text size and we can decrease it, right? Using the CSS method, we achieved that in very first and second video of this sub-series. Now we will apply animation effect when such a transition takes place. Previously, when you click, say for example, the big or the minor, the plus button, the transition takes place. That means the paragraph font size changes, right? That takes place momentarily. Now we will replace the specific CSS method with the animate method, so that you can see the transition takes place in terms of animation nicely. It requires changing the CSS method with the animate as shown below. It requires changing the CSS method with the animate method as shown below. Right? We have paragraphs, and instead of .css, here we are making call to animate method .animate, and we specify font size, right? This is the CSS property, right? Like we did here, curly braces, and the CSS property is a font size, and here we are specifying the value. Previously we used a toggle, and here we are specifying the actual value for the font size px, right? String, in terms of string we are specifying, and size we are already calculating, right? We're just replacing the CSS function with animate, that's all, so that this font size change will take place in terms of animation, and the transition takes place in 3 seconds. Now let's go to the demo and complete it. So let's see where we are calling the CSS property. So size we are calculating, and here is where we are calling the CSS method, right? And if you see how it is working, make big, the effect is taking place quicker, right? Now let us change this to animate method so that the transition will take place in terms of animation. Right? We have a half-second animation. Saved the content, and let's do make big. Reload the content. Right? Now you can see how the animation is taking place. Make small, original, right? So that's all. We will conclude this animate. This is for parallel transition. Transition. Just now you saw the demo. Thank you for watching. Bye.